This was fascinating to me as I did it. Initially, my background in basketball was being like a fanatical and successful high school player, but I got hurt before I could even play in college. Didn't play pro, didn't play a single college game. So credential-wise, like on paper, where's the credibility? Like, where's the authority? Where it was combined with like me being on camera. I could demonstrate everything really well, so there was that. But where it really was in empathy. And that was I would call that like the marketing superpower. That's why the first business took off, is because I was the customer, I lived it. I could communicate with them exactly what they were going through with visceral detail. Like I knew what it was like to be the player who worked all summer long and then, you know, started playing for his team and was on the end of the bench, and then he'd get called in and like he'd be so afraid of messing up that he'd turn over the ball and he'd score 2 points, and then he'd be on the back of the bus with all of his teammates and they're all celebrating, but he's like, "We just lost, why are you guys so happy?" And he's got a knot in his throat, and he goes home and like throws his gym bag into the corner and is just wondering if this is all worth it and when he's ever going to become the player he wants. I knew that like to a this in my bones. And so I could speak their language and I could communicate. I think the important piece is I could communicate the problem and the pain that they were experiencing because of that problem in better detail than they could themselves. So as soon as I started communicating with them, they were like, "Oh, he gets me. He gets me." Combine that with I can do all this cool shit on camera, and I did have a successful high school career, like a first team all-star and had trophies and all of that kind of thing was there. But it was more like, oh, this guy is like a lot like me. And then I could pass that point. So the initial buying process is emotional. I could speak to their emotions and resonate with them emotionally better than like anybody else I saw out there, because nobody else was doing that. The way that I built the connection and like I built the credibility with that list is daily email newsletter with content, stories, speaking their pain and problems to them. And that, again, to this day is like that is the ultimate weapon in marketing as far as I'm concerned. And then over time, by the time the camps came out, we had brought in a bunch of like NBA professional trainers, NBA players, but, and this is the craziest thing to me, it never did as well as the stuff that I'd produced. Yeah. And so I'm like, what the hell? Because we brought in, I don't know if people follow basketball here, but Bradley Beal was like an NBA All-Star back then. Not as good today. Like I think he had an off year, but sick player. So we bring in Bradley Beal to Washington. I hire this big video crew. This is 2014-ish. Brought in a coach to like run him through all his drills, and we launched this big course with Bradley Beal, shooting course. I'm like, this is gonna be sick. Like this guy is so good. He's up and comer, and
he's a star in Washington.
Yeah, he was a star in Washington. So we did another product launch, and it was good. It was nowhere near the courses that I launched on my own. And then every time we launched another course with an NBA trainer, put NBA players in it, it was always just like, yeah, it was good. But it didn't have the personal connection, the empathy. It didn't have that like, again, it was just, I was connecting with them where they were at on a person-to-person level, rather than like some expert authority sort of speaking down to them. I was talking to them like this. And this always worked better than this. And yeah, so square one is that you can't fake empathy. And if you're faking it, the customer is going to feel that, even if you fake it well. And the difference between the first half of those 10 years when I was running elite guard training and the second half is that in the first half, I was not as disconnected from my life as a basketball player. It was fresh in my system. I just lived that. I'd lived that reality and that pain and that struggle, and I knew it it was me, you know? I was speaking to myself minus 5-10 years. So in that way, because I'd felt that pain, I could genuinely empathize and be like, yo, I know. I really know. And again, they can feel that. There's an energy to it. Like there's a resonance. When I speak, they can hear that I've experienced what they're experiencing. In the second half, we had this team of coaches. They don't have a real personal connection with those coaches. I'm still the face of it, but like I'm so disconnected. I'm doing my own wild and crazy 20-year-old shit on the side, not even watching basketball. And so I'm still saying the same stuff. I'm like, you know, all of the lines are the same, but it's not landing anymore because you can feel it. Empathy is not a thought, it's a feeling. And so if you're not feeling the reality of the customer, you're not actually empathizing, you're just putting words to an idea of empathy. That's not going to land. So the process of building empathy is at its very best when it's done at the best. It's having actually lived the reality that your customer is living. And if you haven't done that, you can still make a business work, and I think you can still tap into empathy if you really clarify and you talk to a lot of your customers and you take notes and you write about it and you think about it and you're really trying to get into the mind of the customer. You can do it, but much easier in my experience is if you already are the customer and that is your mind. And so you're just speaking your life experience to them. And they're like, oh, I'm living that experience right now. This guy gets me. So that's the best way. And again, once you can articulate the pain that they're feeling and the problems that they're facing more clearly than they can, immediately they'll trust you. And then it's just a matter of offering a simple, clear solution that makes logical sense. It starts out emotional and then they finish with logic. So if the solution makes logical sense, like, oh yeah, that would totally work. This guy gets me, knows this is gonna work. You know, that's how selling's done. So best is you were the customer and you build a business off of your life experience. Most of business is solving other people's problems. And if you solve that problem for yourself, then you're going to understand the pain of that problem as well as any of your customers. And so you can speak to that. Otherwise, again, do this either way, but talk to your customers repeatedly, like as many as you possibly can. And just really try to, again, not just think through it, but actually feel it to whatever degree that you can. And once you're actually feeling it in your own system, then you're doing empathy for real. Beyond that, it's not empathy. It's not empathy if you're just thinking it. It has to be a feeling. I'll just add one piece onto that, and then, so empathy is very powerful when it's directed at pain and problem. It's also very powerful, though, when it's directed at vision, like greater vision, not just what are we running away from, but what are we running towards? And so another form of, I guess you wouldn't call it empathy, but it is a form of like sharing experience, which is another way of, again, that's where personal connection is built. It's not only did we share this struggle, but we share this greater vision for what we're doing. And that is like crazy powerful. So not only are you articulating the struggle, but you're articulating the vision. And you're saying like, yo, this is possible. This is possible. I've gone through what you've gone through. I've felt that. This thing out there that you've always, like, that is real and it can be yours. You know, that's like nuclear powered marketing. Yeah, but it has to be real. It has to be, yeah, exactly. It has to be real. Otherwise, it's like facade.